have some time with you together this afternoon. It's Thursday, again, in case anyone needs that check-in. Um, we are so happy to have this platform to connect with you during this time. YWTV has really given us an opportunity to hopefully keep you engaged, inspired, and educated on some key and important issues. And nothing more important to be educated on right now than homeschooling, for sure, for those of us that are doing it. Um, for those of you that don't know, I'm sure you do. Um, all of our schools, obviously have been shut down for weeks now. And our governor announced earlier this week that the school year will be ending this way, and we will not be going back to traditional school setting. So for parents and caregivers everywhere, they've suddenly, those of us that have children at home, and I fall into that category with my 7-year-old twins, we suddenly have had to figure out how to balance work if we're working and the homeschooling. And even if you're not balancing work, I think what everyone is learning, what teachers already knew, is that it's a very big job to be educating our children, and really takes a lot of skill, a lot of patience, a lot of creativity. All of these skills together, that I really believe that teachers are kind of born with a lot of that. And I'm sure that there's tricks and tips that over time they develop, but it's really cut from a special cloth, there's no doubt. And I think we can all think about that, because when we look back into our own education, there's definitely teachers that inspired us and stuck with us, and we carry with us to this day and helped shape us. And it also happens to be Teacher Appreciation Week. So we thought no better time than to have some conversations about homeschooling, since now this is going to be our way for the end of the school year. And it's a great opportunity to talk to some teachers and shout out to all the teachers everywhere for the work that they've always done, and definitely for doing the pivot that, the rest of us have had to do, and figuring out how to share their knowledge, with parents, and continue to give it to our children. So with that, I want to welcome Rachel Villanova and Christy Weiss. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
It's a wonderful opportunity. I know that I've been manifesting this conversation for weeks now, so I'm happy that it's finally here. Rachel was a middle school science teacher for 13 years, and she's currently a department supervisor overseeing grades 6 through 12, science, family, and consumer sciences, and applied technology in Northern New Jersey. She's a Board of Education member, and she's also the mother of 2 growing boys. We also have Christy joining us. Christy is the mother of 2 young children and a 3rd grade elementary school teacher in Jefferson Township Public Schools, where she has enjoyed working for the last 18 years. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology while pursuing K-8 elementary certification for teaching. And she received her master's in art of teaching and continued her graduate studies. So ladies, let's just jump right into it. And for our viewers, we've already decided we're going to first focus, we know that, there's kids of all ages that are going through this. But I happen to have little ones. I have 7-year-old twins, as many of you, our listeners, know from our conversations over the last few weeks. We're talking to my friends who have older kids. We are all struggling and have challenges, but there's definitely different challenges. So we decided to split this conversation a little bit by age to, help our viewers, depending on what bucket you might be, operating in, give you some good concrete tips. So we'll start with Christy and talk a little bit about the younger set to go. So with that, Christy, tell me a little bit. I mean, I know one of the biggest challenges in my house, and I also have to say shout out to my husband, because he's the one that is really handling the homeschooling during the day, because I'm doing this and other, key functions for the YW, just because of the way our schedules operate. And, I can hear it when I walk through the house, to go A to point B, and definitely from my conversations with him, is a lot of the struggle is about keeping them focused. You all have sent, a great list, every morning of what they should be doing. But what are some um, tips and tricks to keep the kids focused and engaged throughout the day?
Well, that's actually sort of a loaded question because there's so much that goes into this. But especially for younger children, preschool, kindergarten, elementary, um, they there's this sort of academic piece that goes along with it, but there's also this social emotional piece. And I think both of them together are really important. So if we're considering the academic part of this, they definitely need a structured approach to learning. And even if your child, tells you, "Oh, I don't like schedules," they need it. And it's key to their success and really helps them thrive as learners. And when you're creating a schedule, you always want to include your child in the process. Ask them which subject they'd like to tackle first for the day. Ask them which activities they want to include throughout their schedule to help break it up. You can sort of ask them how long pieces of their assignment should be chunked together as. And involving them in that decision process, actually, it'll strengthen their accountability in the process, but as well as their level of commitment. And you can actually utilize that as sort of a teaching moment if they try to back out later. But the other really important thing is, and I do it with myself, is you want to dedicate one specific part of your home for your child to complete their schoolwork in. And what this does is it actually trains your child's brain to become more focused when they enter this room. So for me, it's in a separate little office space where I can bring my daughter, and she knows that when we go in there, she's going to be working. Her brain actually sort of remembers that, and it becomes more of a muscle memory type thing. As I said before, you should probably chunk assignments as well, break them down into smaller, more manageable pieces. And that sort of depends on your child's development. Does your child have attentional issues? Are they really young, like a preschool or kindergarten student that might need smaller pieces of work assignments? Or are they third graders like my children, where they can get through a bigger amount of work in a longer? They're making their way through their tasks, and it's sort of rewarding them. And then you also want things like praise and positivity and a reward system in place if you have a younger child. For my daughter, we use a little sticker chart. And for each task that she completes, she checks off her task. And after 2 of them, she gets a little sticker on her chart. And if she gets 4 stickers throughout the day, then she gets to pick the family activity for the night, whether it's a board game, whether it's a game of Simon Says, whatever we're doing to have sort of some fun time together. But those are really key pieces when you're talking about the academic part of this. But equally important, I feel like the social emotional components are really big. I always have parents, when I'm meeting with them at conferences and I'm telling them how wonderful their child is, they're saying, "Are you talking about my kid? Like, where are those frustrational moments that every parent experiences?" And I'm like, "Yes, your child's an angel when they're with me." And I actually have the same conversation with my 5-year-old's preschool teachers. And I feel like that's natural because children are most comfortable with you. You're their safe spot. And because they have that rapport with you and that sense of security, they're more likely to have these frustrational meltdowns. And so there are some things that we as parents should be very aware of and sort of address with our children as well, especially when we're working with them. One of the big focuses in elementary schools over the last 2 to 3 years is this shift to mindfulness and focusing on a growth mindset, which basically helps your child learn that their abilities are not innate. If they struggle in math, they're not always going to struggle in math. And that basically they can grow their intelligence and their abilities. And with the growth mindset thoughts, we also sort of tune into mindfulness. And we want our children to pay attention to how they're feeling at a given time in order to be able to work through those frustrational meltdowns that occur. And in doing so, I feel like children sort of pick up on what we're implying about their overall education. We sort of tune their minds, prime them to look at it with one perception or the other, which is why it's sort of important to target this at home and make it a teachable point. So when my daughter is having meltdowns over trying to go through her sight words every day, I use the same strategies that I would use with my third graders in class, and I just might tweak them and break them down a little bit differently. But if they're frustrated, if you encounter a frustrated child, the first thing you want to do as a parent who's now working with them, as a teacher who's working with them, is you want to acknowledge those feelings and validate them. Oh, Emma, I understand you're frustrated with that word that has 3 letters. That's because it's so tough when we include all 3 letters and they have different sounds now. So you want to like validate that feeling, let them know that it's okay, it's totally normal. And after you do that, you want to add in some of your tips for mindfulness. And I think your parents are going to get access to a presentation that was created both by myself and Rachel Villanova. And in that, we included some mindfulness pieces. Actually, I had found a couple which are perfect from Big Life Journal. They gave you 5 different ones. And in my house,
we have that. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. There's an impactful video for parents to see that sort of educates them about the topic. But then there's 5 little mindfulness activities that you can use with your child every day. And actually, when we were working on it this morning in between my emails and making my plans, she was literally melting down on the floor. And I should have grabbed it, has this glitter jar. And actually, it's referenced in this very impactful video that your viewers can also check in and see, called Just Breathe by Julie Bayer Salzman and Josh Salzman, with an overview of why mindfulness is so significant to our younger learners. But we use this glitter jar, and as she's melting down, I quickly grab it. It's like my lifeline in those moments. And I shake it up and I'm like, Emma, is this how you're feeling? And what it is, it's just a little mason jar with water in it or some oil and a bunch of glitter. And it's swirling around and floating around. She's like, yes. And she's almost conditioned at this point. She knows that's like those emotions and the thoughts surging through her. And as gravity takes shape and those little sparkles of glitter gently settle on the floor, focusing on that gives her an opportunity to collect herself, to calm herself, to clear her mind.
Yeah, that's an activity. I know we've done it as well. I have to say, on that Big Life Journal, for parents, it's a wonderful resource for all ages too. So
absolutely.
Yeah, those are really great tips. And I myself am making some notes to ask you and actually Rachel when you're together later, because I think that we're so focused right now on the learning,
right,
that we are forgetting about that kind of emotional support piece that we're feeling, as parents, and they're getting report cards, they're getting graded on things. Are we teaching them the right things that they're going to be able to transition to the next grade appropriately? Those, I think, as our anxieties as parents as we're teaching. So how can we feel like we know if they're actually learning something, that it's making its way through? Well, especially if we not be, feel equipped as to, in some of the subjects. I know a few weeks ago, the Spanish teacher, had sent this assignment, and my husband and I don't speak Spanish, and we were sitting here trying to teach the Spanish assignment, and they were asking us questions, and we're looking at each other, trying to figure out how to answer them. So, we walked away like, did we just do a parent fail? Did they not get any of that in, or maybe did they get something? So, just how do we know they're learning?
Well, one of the tips that I would give you, first of all, is just to focus on the process of learning rather than the end result. I mean, that's key for anything that you can do. And it's going to help motivate your child if they're frustrated or hitting that wall. But as far as being able to see if the learning is going through, the best way that you could sort of challenge any student's understanding is by asking them to demonstrate it and teach somebody else. So if Emma learned how to tackle multiple step problems, I might have her, call her grandma and share a problem and have her explain how she would tackle it. Which steps would she do first and why? And if a child is able to articulate that, it's taking their learning from passive learning and making it active. And it's boosting their metacognition. They're thinking about what they're thinking. And in doing so, it's strengthening those higher order thinking skills, which are what makes our innovators, our creators, all of those wonderful life skills that we want to sort of capitalize on and nurture.
That's great. That's a great technique. I never, would have thought to do that. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So obviously you already kind of gave us some guidance that structure is good and important and needed, even if they tell you they don't need it. So, one of the things, I guess, when you think about their school day and how it's set up, how normally they've got class and snack time and maybe they go to music and then they come back and then there's lunch and then there's recess and there's all these, the day gets broken up. When we're home, should we be breaking up all of their learning? Sometimes I feel like, in our house, we think to ourselves, well, okay, let's just get it done, right? So let's get it all compressed and done in 2 hours and then it's done for the day. I mean, is that the way to go, or are we better off?
Definitely not. You always want to break up their learning. Our children need opportunities to relax mentally, to let go of everything that's in their head. And they also need opportunities for physical activity and exercise. I know right now, the majority of my learning with my third graders, I use digital platforms through Google Classroom. And so they're doing their assignments on the computer most of the time. So they need a chance to reset their eyes, get away from screen time, and clear their heads and also get that exercise in, because these days it's easy to become more sedentary when you're behind the computer. So brain breaks are especially useful at doing this. We use them in the classroom. I use them with my daughter. And you can even build them into your schedule as you're creating it with your child. But anytime that you sort of see that the learning is starting to decline, it might be a key signal to you that it's time to implement a different activity. Now, brain break typically, as we use it in the classroom, it's just a short 3 to 5 minute activity, and it just allows the child a chance to get their wiggles out, to mentally release all of that hard thinking that they're doing. And what it does is it brings about a greater focus for learning when you get back to whatever your activity is. So it doesn't necessarily have to be structured between your activities. You can sort of gauge your audience or look at your child and see what cues they're giving you. But there's some great ones out there. And again, in the links that we had created, your viewers can actually access some activities. There's yoga for children that they could do, just quick little activities. Go Noodle is a big one. Even my nephew down in Maryland in his, elementary classes does those activities, and they're really fun. I love to do them too with my daughter. Gets her going as well. But you could even take a brain break and draw. You know what I mean? It's anything, but you want to try to incorporate some activity. So if you're going to draw, maybe have them go get a pencil and then come back and do, to increase the physical activity that they're also receiving. I know that's a big one, the activity.
Yeah. I just want to say for our viewers that I know that Christy keeps mentioning the material they put together. And I know that we've noted in the comments here, but I want everyone to know that you are going to get a link attached to this stream that will give you access to what she's referring to. I know that, so feel confident that you're getting it all these great suggestions, which I'm thrilled about hearing myself. So maybe let's take a moment and flip to talking about upper middle school and high school students and bring Rachel into the conversation. And Christy will loop back with you in a minute.
Thank you.
Um, Hi,
Hi,
thank you, Christy. That was great. That was great. And Rachel, welcome. And I know,
thank
and
you.
Rachel and Christy together put together the materials that you all will be having access to as part of this. So, obviously, in my house, as I said, I've got 7-year-olds, but I know when I'm talking to my friends that have high schoolers and my friends that have middle schoolers, they're definitely dealing with different challenges, but challenges nonetheless. Um, so, one of the things I would imagine, that uh, my husband and I think, oh my God, it would be so much easier if they were older because then you could just give them their work and leave them. Is that true? I mean, how much freedom and autonomy should we really be giving the older set?
Well, it's a different question based on the grades. Grades 6 through 12, it's a massive gap between
Yeah.
a 12-year-old to an 18-year-old. And I think the more autonomy goes with the older the students. So your lower middle school students, you're going to want to give a little bit more guidance to, where you're going to want to let your upperclassmen kind of thrive on their own and really start to prepare for those skills that they need for after they graduate. When it comes to autonomy, I think the one benefit, I know remote learning is really difficult, it's going to give us a chance to really foster positive and good habits. We could really take advantage of this time to get those crucial skills that the students need, no matter what path they take after their schooling's done. You can foster self-advocacy. You could foster organizational skills and developing routines and independence, which is all the things that we try to do already in the classroom. But now more so in the remote learning environment, it's just way more important because they don't have the teacher walking around kind of cueing in, oh, are you confused? Let me help you organize. It's kind of left to the devices of the families. So building those productive habits, some tips I can give: recording assignments on a Google Calendar, laying out when you have those big projects, because in middle school and high school, a lot of the assignments coming out are multiple day projects. And it's really important for students to figure out, okay, day 1, I'm going to do this. Day 2, I'm going to do this. And day 3, I'll finish it up. That's going to help with their organization. It's going to break up the information into digestible chunks so that they're not so overwhelmed as they go through this process. And it's a really important life skill. Another thing that maybe would help in the autonomy area is the checklists. There is a website called Checkly. The students can make a checklist and share it with their parents and check it off as they go throughout the day. So the parents don't have to be on top of them, but they can actually kind of see the progress they're making. They can stop and talk about it. Oh, I see that you're having a hard time finishing this next item on your list. Do you need some help, or what are you doing? And have those really important conversations. When making the calendars, just as Christy said, it's really important to get your child's input. Try to let them make their own schedule, their own routine, and have those conversations with them as needed if you think they're kind of off or off task or off target on spending too much time on one topic and not enough on the other. Those conversations are going to foster that independence that I had just mentioned. It also will allow you as a parent to be kept in the loop and involved in their conversations and their progress. I think I might have hit everything.
We will look up that website and attach it as a link too in the comments so that people can find it. It's wonderful to have new tools to help motivate our kids to to be engaged. So one of the things, and of course, as I said, my kids are younger, but I'm assuming it's probably even more of a distraction as they get older, is their devices, right? So when they're in school, they're not allowed to have their phones, right next to them on their desk while they're working. But it's kind of, I would think, an interesting conundrum what you do about their devices in this setting, because maybe they're using it to look at the stuff that the teacher is sending and to moderate it, but at the same time it could easily get them into making a TikTok just as quickly as while it's sitting there. So what are your thoughts about devices and how that be handled?
It's a tricky question. It's really about the student and knowing your child and how distracted they will get. It's hard because, just as you said, the phone could be access to assignments, it could be access to collaboration. And as Christy had mentioned, the brain breaks, they're so very important. So every about 30 minutes, middle school and high schoolers should be taking some type of brain break for about 3 to 5 minutes. Maybe they're using an app on their phone for breathing or meditation or yoga poses, or maybe just to say a quick hello to their friends, because they really are missing that social piece and obviously the emotional piece as well. I think that's one of the biggest challenges when I talk to the teachers and the parents, that they just miss their friends, they miss the interaction. So the phone is that connection for them. I would say, though, if your child's becoming really distracted, maybe some kind of type of progressive discipline. All right, I'll give it to you every 30 minutes when it's brain break time, or the entire time, because you've proven that you've gone through your whole checklist and that you are meeting your requirements and your responsibilities as the student.
So you kind of read them and go from there. I hear you.
I know it's not an easy answer, because every child is so different with that.
Well, it's so true that they are all different, but it's also, it does remind us, though, that we do have to hover, and monitor, because even if one day they're doing well with something, it doesn't mean they'll be doing well with it the next day.
Absolutely. And, think about even just for us as adults, it's hard to put your phone down and not get distracted for it, even while you're working. So sometimes I know even myself, I'll have to put it in another room to concentrate on a project, and modeling those strategies and showing your children that you can do that as well. And that's how you can concentrate, and gives them kind of ideas saying, all right, well, maybe this is a strategy that would work. Let me at least try it and see how it goes.
Yep, for sure. So maybe we can bring Christy back, and the three of us can chat about a few things that, kind of, you all said. I made a few notes with paper. Okay. I made a few notes as you all were talking, and they seem to be kind of like crossover things. So you both mentioned it, and but I know it's different for the age groups. You mentioned the social piece and the kid missing the social piece, and I'm also thinking about the grief maybe that kids are experiencing, especially with the older kids that are maybe missing their proms and missing their graduations. What are some tools to help parents manage some of those pieces? And I know last Thursday actually, we had Amy Edelstein on with us, who's a clinical social worker who focuses on, work with children, and gave us a lot of tips on managing anxiety and so forth. But I'm curious, from your perspective, educators, how we, as parents that are navigating the teaching, that stuff's popping up. How do we manage that too? And we may not even realize that's what it is that's popping up.
There's a lot of access to other resources in school besides your teacher. That your child can reach out to the guidance counselor, or there's a school psychologist. Students with special needs have case managers who can help try to navigate you through and through these feelings, and help your child, or talk to your child if they have a good relationship with them. And even if it's not you directly talking to your child, just having your student talk to someone at school might bring a sense of normalcy for them and bring them a sense of comfort.
Yeah.
And I would piggyback on Rachel's statements there. I would also maybe do something like start a gratitude journal, refocus their thinking in sort of more of a positive mindset, draw their attention to all the wonderful things that they still do have going on, and maybe, can look forward to in the future, enjoying with their friends. And you want to sort of reframe their focus and remind them that they're not stuck at home right now. They're being safe at home, and they can even do something to contribute to what really is a historically significant time, because we will move past this. Life will resume, and it's sort of interesting to have this little primary source, if you will, of what life was like for them during these times.
Yeah, I think what Christy said is really key, that positivity, because I know it's very easy to get stuck in the things that make us upset, but there are a lot of good things around all of us, and things to look forward to, especially for the students going forward. So having those conversations, praising your child about how great they're doing or how well they're handling a situation is really important.
Yeah, and I just also want to direct our folks watching that we did a great YWTV yesterday with Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, and she talked a lot about mental health breaks and mental health minutes that she's been doing on her page. And there are a lot of great ideas there that were focused on kind of renewal and gratitude and the seasons, and that, stuff, there is a cycle to life. And even though this is happening, those things are comforting to know that the trees are blooming, and,
Right.
the weather is changing, and, and those things can help remind us that we will get back a different place and a different time.
And even honestly, I would say just to embrace this quality family time that we have right now. We're never going to have this chance where we can watch our kids' milestones unfold in front of us. So we want to sort of focus on the strengths that we have around us right now. And we're all at home with our families. And I feel like if we could build in positive activities, even just to do as a family, that sort of reframes some of their focus too.
For sure.
Yeah, and having separation of school and work, so to speak, and family time. You don't want every conversation to revolve around, did you get your schoolwork done? How is that project going?
Right.
Still trying to keep that normal family contact in place, having fun together, playing games, so that they just have that separation and they have that break. Because I know even for us, I talk to the teachers and talking to Christy, when you're home all the time, it's really hard to find that on-off switch. And we need to model that for our children. Otherwise, that anxiety will rise. They need to have time to calm down, to reflect, to take their mind off all of the schoolwork and the learning that's going on in the evenings or on the weekends.
So I have a question, because I think, as a parent, and I keep seeing a lot of funny memes about this on social media too. So we've kind of been conditioned, and I think a lot of us have tried to keep our kids away from screen time as much as possible, right? Because we are so focused on the negative parts of that and what it does to our kids. And now suddenly, as you both said too, their learning is happening on screens all day long, which is a little different. I know that they do some screens at school, but it's not as much as it is now, for sure.
Right.
And then when it's time for them to recess or break, some of the activities that they enjoy are on screens. And that would be time that, let's say, if they got 30 minutes a day or whatever, you have whatever works in your house. There's no judgment here. Whatever, everyone does what works for them. How do we manage that? I mean, in terms of, do we let them get off the screen, for school and then get on the screen for fun? Or should we just be like, no, you're going outside and playing, even if it's raining outside, get out there for like 4 hours. You're not looking at a screen. How can you help parents navigate some of that? Because I think we're all struggling.
Honestly, I feel like there should, sorry.
No, you go.
I feel like there should be a healthy balance for both of those. I feel like fresh air, being with nature, it sort of centers you and allows them to get physical, have them run around, have them, practice whatever sport they might normally be playing, but do it in their backyard to keep those skills going. And it gives their brain sort of a chance to, act in a different way. But then you also definitely have to make allowances for them to have that social element with their friends, which right now, it, occurs on platforms like Zoom, or
Right.
maybe, to FaceTime your friends or whatnot. But they definitely need that. I know even my third graders are missing each other. But especially at the younger age, if you can sort of monitor that conversation and make sure that it's happening in, a socially appropriate manner, that would be wonderful as well.
Yeah.
I think you hit all the points, Christy. I know even for my boys, as much as I don't want them playing video games all the time, that's how they get to talk to their friends. That's how they get to socialize. Yeah. So I have the same struggles at home. Should I let them go on the screen or should I force them to go outside? So I think just keeping that balance and making them do both, or letting them do both.
Well, I have to thank you, ladies. You gave us so much information. I know personally I benefited from this, and I'm sure, I can see from the comments that, others have as well. You mentioned a couple of times, and I think it leaves us with something at the YW to think about for future conversation is, the mindfulness of kids, and mindfulness techniques with children, which I feel like we could do an entire conversations on. But it does, I think, lead us as parents to be thinking about mindfulness for ourselves, right? Because it really isn't something you can manifest, for your children if it's not a space that you have carved out for yourself. And, right now, when we're juggling so much in our homes, I've never cooked so many meals from scratch, in my life, and, baking cookies and, everything that's going on, and, work all day long, and the same struggle that we're saying we want to model for our kids about work day ending and, school. So all this stuff happening that we've got to, we have to make that space of mindfulness and self-care, to be able to create it for our children too. So it probably leaves me with some homework for us, for our viewers, to come up with some more conversations to help us do that. Look, a lot of the stuff we're talking about, which is wonderful, and I appreciate, is that it's great that you're sharing this with us now that we're homeschooling, but these are all amazing, tips and techniques for us to employ at all times with our kids, like even going forward when we get back to like normal functioning and homework again and stuff like that. So,
well, the great thing about mindfulness is it's definitely contagious. That's for sure. And as you sort of use it to teach your child, you start to take it on, into your own life. And so its benefits are really endless. I will say that. I don't know if we have time for a quick example, but even just teaching your child a positive mantra, or a way to overcome negative mindset. I had taught my daughter just a little tool in her toolbox to say, I can do hard things. And a really wonderful moment sort of unfolded for the two of us when we were down visiting family in Maryland several months ago. She was getting into a tubular shaped slide, and it was really big for her. And I was down at the bottom just listening, and I hear, I can do hard things. And it was so endearing. And I just felt like, yes, like mom win. And then recently, actually before the quarantine, we were moving, my husband and I, we were moving physically furniture into my mom's tiny little apartment. And we weren't sure if we would need a third person there, a friend, just to help. But I'm pushing and my husband's pulling, and we're trying to get it through a small door frame. And I found myself going, I can do hard things. And I literally pushed it through. So, I mean, it's evident right there that this stuff works.
That's great. Look, we all need those, we need the mantras to get through these days too. I can
Definitely.
get through hard days. I can get through hard So thank you both. Any last tips for parents before we sign off today?
I think just be patient and think about the overarching goals. Don't get caught up on the little minute pieces of content. Think about the overall picture of what you want your child to get out of the remote learning experience, that self-advocacy, being independent and developing routines, the things that are going to carry them through whatever situation might lie ahead.
I love that, Rachel. And I would definitely also say, stay in touch with your child's teacher, especially those of you with younger children. Teachers are very good usually about reaching out, but always feel like you can go to them too, especially if your child is struggling with a particular lesson. Allow your teacher to have that chance to build in, an extra opportunity to work with them as well.
They miss them so much. The teachers really miss the children. They understand
Absolutely
the struggles that are going on at home, and they're more than willing to help and be flexible, but they won't know if you need help unless you ask.
Yeah, I have to say, I personally had that experience with something with my daughter that she was struggling, and we like offline reached out to the teacher, not even like thinking about it early on. It just took a few days for us to kind of get there, and she was great. She set up a separate Zoom with my daughter, now does it once a week just to check on her, since then. It's really made a big difference for her. So I can totally attest that, if you need them, reach out. I love the idea, because I really hadn't thought about it myself, though, is that the guidance counselors and the other teachers, that you can reach out to them, as supports as well. So, all right, folks, you guys got a lot of great information today from Rachel and from Christy. I'm so grateful to both of you for sharing so much of your expertise with us. I just want to, reiterate that, teachers rock. We, should always, as I said, I've always understood the importance of teachers. But I think that, globally, there's hopefully a much better understanding of the work that you do, the impact that it has, and the layers and layers of it. That it's not just about teaching them the alphabet. That there's so much more that goes on to shaping our children. And so grateful to the two of you. So grateful to all the teachers out there, and not only because it's Teacher Appreciation Week every single day. And I hope that we all keep, we spend a lot of time at the YW trying to keep people engaged in voting and the important issues. The platforms about education, the issues about education, school system budgets, these are all important issues that you should make sure as a parent that you're aware of, that you understand what's happening in your schools, and that you're voting to be able to support your whole district, to be able to support your child and their needs and their district needs that way. And you can only learn, go to your Board of Education meetings, learn in what's happening at the schools. I mean, these are, it's hard as parents to find the time for these things, because I know it's one more thing, but at the end of the day, times like this, when resources are needed, we look back to those votes and those those pieces of legislation and that impact where we are today. So it's important and meaningful. So for those of you that are going to join us tomorrow, we have a wonderful treat for you. Keju Fernandez, who happens to be a YWCA board member, but also a senior vice president of marketing at Konica Minolta, will be joining us to talk about how you motivate a team when you're working remotely. She has quite an impressive amount of people that she oversees internationally in her position, and has been doing it. And so it's a wonderful opportunity now that so many of us have had to flip into leading in this space, to get some tips from someone who by far is a master. So we're so grateful to have time with Kay tomorrow. So join us for that. And we encourage you to stay connected with us on our website and on our social media platforms. We have a whole week of great shows next week also. I'm looking forward to you small business folks learning about how to really next level your websites. For parents, some of what we talked about how to keep your children safe when they're on all these devices and on all these sites, especially now when you might not, be able to monitor them as closely because you're distracted with work and other things. So we've got the New Jersey the New Jersey Coalition on Human Trafficking representatives coming and talking a little bit about internet safety. So we're excited for that, and a lot of other great stuff. So look forward to having you with us next week. We wish everyone a good evening. And thank you again, Rachel and Christy, for all of your nuggets of, teaching. And I feel motivated. I feel motivated to ask my husband to watch this, since he's the one doing it. But I feel motivated. Again, anyone watching, if there's someone in your life that you're like, oh man, I wish that they had seen this, it was so important. Do not despair. This lives on our Facebook page, and it's on our YouTube channel, and you can share it with them. They can go find it and save it and watch it whenever they have time. It's nothing that they missed. It lives on, and I do encourage you to share it because it's had lots of good information today. So take care, everyone. Be well, and thank you again, ladies. And
Thank you.
happy homeschooling, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.